And now, aviation weather around Alaska. Hi, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska aviation weather outlook for this weekend. And taking a look at conditions as we anticipate for Saturday morning. First, on this Friday, as I'm delivering this video, we have low pressure that's cutting across the central Alaska peninsula, and that'll be moving up west there of Bristol Bay and then across Cape Newingham area Saturday morning, and then the low will just kind of wobble briefly into the southwest interior up toward Bethel and then back toward the lower Yukon Delta as we go through Saturday night and into Sunday between St. Lawrence Island and Nome. So with taking a path like this, we do expect some areas of snow and lower ceilings and things spreading northward. Right now we have, for Saturday morning, we anticipate widespread IFR conditions along the southwest coast, Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay, and areas of the Alaska Peninsula. Frontal system that arcs out ahead of it. We've had a couple of fronts already, one moving inland, that's what this is the remnants of, and then just general trough lagging here across the Gulf, with areas of precipitation, rain at the coast, and snow in the intercoastal mountains. So IFR along areas of the northern and northeastern Gulf Coast into the inner mountains of the Panhandle. For Saturday afternoon, there's enough pocket of instability. There could even be some convective showers that could include a flash or two of lightning, rumble of thunder here over the western Gulf, east of Kodiak Island and off the Kenai coast. This area will drift northeastward for Sunday, but we still have areas of IFR, the northern portion of the Panhandle into the northeastern Gulf Coast and into some of the mountains there, and then down here across the southwest, and a few areas with the upslope glide of this milder air. This system has brought in milder air, temperatures getting above freezing, especially here south central areas. That milder air could also trigger some light precipitation and lower ceilings. And then on Sunday morning, we anticipate the potential for rumble of thunder here in the northwestern Gulf just outside of Prince William Sound, with some areas of IFR persisting here in the northern Panhandle, St. Wrangell, Elias Mountains, along the southward slopes here of the Alaska Range, and then up through the interior, the west coast, southwest interior, Kuskokwim, lower Yukon Basin, across the Seward Peninsula, all around Norton Sound, and then areas up here just south of the Brooks Range and up along parts of the North Slope. Sunday afternoon, we still have some IFR conditions holding on around Yakutat up toward Haines, Skagway, and then also along the south slopes of the Brooks Range from around Bettles westward all the way to Kotzebue, and then also from around Point Hope on up to about Wainwright there along the northwestern coast. So pass conditions Saturday, Anaktuvik Pass will see deteriorating conditions, MVFR becoming IFR, simply because we have that milder air working its way northward. So coming into an area that had experienced such bitter cold temperatures here for mid-January and up into early February, we expect that same thing. Adigan, MVFR becoming IFR. IFR conditions should hold along the west arm of the Alaska Range, Lake Clark, Merrill, going all the way up through Rainy Pass. Windy Pass generally should have MVFR conditions, but south entrance and to the west of there, IFR. Isabel Pass is looking to be generally MVFR conditions Saturday. Further east, Mentasta Pass through the pass, generally VFR, but as you go down in the Copper River Basin, MVFR conditions are likely. Tanita Pass, generally MVFR conditions, though there could be some IFR conditions just south of Tanita Pass. And then Portage Pass right now is looking generally MVFR conditions from the west entrance into western Prince William Sound, though on the north side of Prince William Sound, there will likely be some IFR conditions in and around those intercoastal mountains in that area. Chilkoot and White will remain socked in with IFR conditions for Saturday. And looking at the freezing levels at the surface, we see the surface freezing line running through the lower Bering, up through Bristol Bay, and even bumping upwards into the lower portion of the Susitna Valley. We do have warmer air that's coming northward. Places like Anchorage are going to see temperatures above freezing this weekend. And as we get down here into the Panhandle, we find that being the case with the exception of the far northern higher elevations of the Panhandle there in the intercoastal mountains. Looking at the greatest threat for some icing on Saturday with the remnant trough boundary from the front that pushed northeastward, and then the low that's working its way across the southwest interior. We would find some areas of precipitation, lower ceilings and visibilities, icing possible above a couple thousand feet once you get into those precipitation producing clouds. Also potential for some icing above 4,000 feet along the Brooks Range, and then pockets of moderate icing along coastal areas of the Gulf into the parts of the Panhandle, but not too extensive. Now looking at the jet stream level winds, 30,000 feet, there is a jet core around 100 knots, basically British Columbia into central Canada. Across the Gulf, southwest winds 60, 75 knots, lighter winds though mainland, central interior, the far north. At 9,000 feet, though, pretty good belt of winds associated with the low that's back here. So in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, 40 to 50 knot winds common over the northern portion of the Panhandle, Kodiak Island, south central. And then pockets of locally higher winds pushing across the southeast mainland on up into the northeastern Gulf Coast in excess of 50 to 65 knots. And then bringing it down to 3,000 feet. We find pretty good flow coming into Bristol Bay. Southwesterly winds to as high as 40, 50 knots. Areas out over the western Gulf as high as 50, 55 knots, and also 40 knot plus just off of the northeastern Gulf Coast. And then also some stronger winds up here off of the northwest Arctic coast as you are just to the northwest there of Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. And so the greatest threat for turbulence on Saturday will be here across much of the areas of south central and even up into the Alaska Range, surface to 10,000 feet, especially along the ridge lines and gaps of the Alaska Range. Broad area of moderate turbulence possible from the northern portion of the Panhandle, northeastern, northwestern Gulf, along the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and then coming into Bristol Bay area, there is on the west side of the Alaska Range potential for some isolated severe turbulence and surface to 4,000 feet. So again, could be rather turbulent in areas here of the southwest going through the day on Saturday.